So now I'm gonna cover this quickly, guys. So this could be also a full lecture with loads of examples, but I just want to mention this, and I want you to maintain these 4 important words, the 4 principles in writing your narrative, your story. So you're writing a story, you're writing a paper. It's important to know, your narrative, the principles that will guide it. And I call them the metaphysical principles because these are human values, and these are values of successful people too. Successful people, they are rooted, they are directional, they are connected, and they are consistent. And this is what you need to reflect in your writing as an author. So your writing should be rooted, directional, connected, and consistent. These 4 principles or words, like adjectives, are very, very important. Now, the opposite of that is, how do you know that a piece of writing on paper is bad? First, the let's say the opposite of rooted is uprooted. The opposite of directional is disoriented. So the author will take you from one place to another randomly. They will jump quickly from idea to idea without connecting anything. The opposite of connected is disconnected. And consistent is inconsistent, okay? So definitely you don't want your paper to be here. You don't want your paper to tick any of these boxes, because these are dangerous boxes, I would say. So you don't want to be here. You want to be, at the top. Okay, so on top of your game. So here in this example, rooted, what does it mean? So let me just go over this step by step. So I'm just going to give you an overview, but this is something to ponder over, to think about, and to develop yourself. So it's important to think about these 4 elements when you're writing, and how can they manifest in your writing. These will also be, like a way of reading. So if you when you read papers, you will ask the question, oh, are these paragraphs or sentences rooted? Are they directional? Do I feel connectedness in the paper? Well, where does the author, fall off? Does not, I feel like this is not consistent. This is a bit heavy to read. So every time you read a paper and you feel heaviness, it's not a good paper. A good paper, even the hardest and most difficult mathematically challenging paper, will be an easy read because of the clarity of the writing, the clarity of the structure, the narrative, the logic, the rootedness, directionality, connectedness, and consistency. So first thing, rooted. Rooted, it means in literature, okay? So you need to root in the literature, or what we call state of the art. So when you write, for example, your first paragraph, you cannot cite the first paper right here. So it's too late, right? So the end of the first paragraph, if you've written a full paragraph, you really need to back up your sentences by one or many references, okay? So this is what we call rootedness. You're rooting your tree into different, into historical works or published works. So rootedness is so important. References are important throughout the whole paper. So this is whole paper, particularly introduction, results, and discussion, especially discussion especially, okay? So if you combine them, it's okay, but here, so it's the discussion and the intro, and of course you need to cite in the method section a few, okay? So especially if you're comparing, but these should be really heavy on citations, the intro and the discussion. They should be heavily rooted. And the other ones, it's okay if they are sparsely rooted, okay? Because you're focusing on describing your method. Directionality is so important. So let's talk about directionality right here. Okay, so directionality, I want to think about it. So I'm starting my story from the intro, section 1, intro, 2, methods, okay, 3, results, 4, discussion, and then 5, conclusion. So directionality means that when I start my first sentence and second sentence, everything will point towards my solution. Everything. So everything is connected, and I have a sense of the directionality towards the final discovery, the final take-home message. So basically, from the beginning, I sense where you're going, and this is a great writer. This comes with time and practice, but if you have good logic, you can guarantee this from the beginning, guys, okay? Even as a fresh writer, as a baby writer. So directionality means that when I go from here, from this part, from sentence to sentence, I know that this sentence will lead me to another way, another, like point, and this point will lead me to another point, and all these points will basically lead to my contributions, will lead to my solution, okay? So there is a sense of orientedness, there is a goal that you want to get to. And if you don't have this feeling, if you don't give the reader this feeling, there are elements of style and writing that give you this feeling, okay? The reader will feel, and the reviewer will feel disoriented, okay? So what does that mean? It means you start from your point A and you want to go to point B. And if you guide me properly, you guide me, from point to point, idea to idea, argumentation, logic, you get me to there. I can see here, like I can see even from the beginning where you're getting to, because the trajectory is almost linear, okay? So it means that from here, I can see that you want to get there. From far away, it's like, you look at this, oh, I want to get there. I want to walk to, I want to, climb that mountain, right? You see where you're getting. You need to give your reader that feeling at every single step. I know that I want to get there. So there is my method that solves, for example, mode collapse, that solve in GANs, in generative learning, that uses LLMs because it uses text integrated with GNNs to solve a particular problem, for example, right? So I know where I'm getting at, and every time I'm reading through, you're guiding me to the details and the intricacies, like how are you actually gonna manifest that, and how are you gonna design that, right? So I know where you're going, I'm not lost. A really bad paper, and I will give you an example later to read, does not have a clear sense of directionality. It gets you to idea one, talks about ML, and then gets you to DL, far away, and then it gets you to GNNs, right, as I explained earlier. So it's like disoriented, right? So it jumps from idea to idea, and it's not coherent, it's not flowy, it's big jumps from topic to topic, right? And I've seen that many times. So you really need to be very specific, very careful. Your orientation, your directionality should be mini steps. You should not also be very, you should not minimize your steps too much, right? So imagine you're doing it this way, like, guiding your reader in a very, very not friendly, caring, over guiding, right? Over guiding is not good. Like baby steps. Oh, I'm going to do this, and because of this, I'm going to do that. Because of that, I'm going to, and then that's too much. So there is a lot of balance in writing, like in life, and that is learned through experience and through a lot of reading and through paying attention to these principles when you are reading, okay? Cool. So now, connectedness, I mentioned this before. So the sense of directionality, it means that the reader will know where they're getting at or getting to when they start reading the paper. I know that you want to get to B, okay? Exactly. I don't know how you're going to do it, but you're guiding me throughout the paper in a very nice directional way. Connectedness, it means when you are, so let's do it this way here. So connectedness, it means, as I mentioned earlier, when you talk about paragraph one, or you write your first paragraph and you move to the second paragraph, you cannot just jump, okay? Don't jump, talk about here GNN and here talk about segmentation, and they're completely disconnected. You need to connect them, and there should be either in the middle something that connects, or this sentence that connects or paves the way for the next paragraph. So you always need to logically connect your ideas. Even in the method section, your paragraphs, especially paragraphs here, okay? So of course these rules apply, I'll tell you later. So these apply to different levels of the paper, but in this case, paragraphs need to be connected properly, and also in them across all sections, whether it's intro, it's method section, results discussion. So the connectedness needs to be there. You can't just jump randomly. And you need to always, prepare your reader for what is coming, okay? With a sense of directionality. And the last thing is consistency. Consistency is so important. So consistency is, you can look at it in figures, tables, symbols, text, and of course, maths. Okay, so mathematical symbols. So if you're using, for example, X to denote an image, you cannot use the same symbol for another thing. If you use XI here, the I is for the number of for the sample ID. Okay, for example, sample ID. Then you cannot say I is the number of clusters, is the cluster ID later. So there should be consistency when you're using variables. And consistency within the figure, as I mentioned earlier, when you have colors, for example. Tables also should be consistent, symbols, and the text. So when you use, your vocabulary. So consistency is visual, okay? And also it is, in the written text or textual. Visual and textual, okay? Cool. So now these 4 principles that we talked about, they apply. You can check them between sentences, from sentence to sentence, also paragraphs, from paragraph to paragraph, and also sections, big sections. From sections to sections, you need to connect your sections, okay, big sections. So you can check these principles at the micro scale of the paper and at the macro scale, okay, of the paper, because the paper has different scales, and we had this before, okay? We talked about this at the very beginning. Okay, so to summarize, you want your writing or your narrative to be rooted, directional, connected, and consistent. All right, so that was, just a big overview of this.